I recently read a very disturbing article titled Blind to Latin America. Within the article, it cited a report that was released by the Colombian government that alleges that U.S. soldiers and contractors based in Colombia were sexually assaulting underage girls, filming it, and selling it as pornography. With such horrendous and heinous allegations, I wanted to get to the bottom of it. I wanted to know, were these just merely allegations made out of whole cloth, or were there any truth to them, especially with it being released by the Colombian government? So I reached out to the author of the article, who is a nationally syndicated columnist for the Washington Post Writers Group, Miss Esther J. Cepeda. And Esther is here today to talk more about this article. How you doing today, Esther? Can you expound on this a little bit more for us?
So the article that I think you saw, Blind to Latin America, it was actually a two-part article. The first one was written after there was reporting done in English in Colombia by a news outlet called Columbia Reports. And they were talking about a historic report that had been put out by the Colombian government that sort of glossed over the fact that there were these allegations that many women and children were being raped by American soldiers and American agents, contractors and things like that, in Colombia. And so the person who is at Columbia Reports, the editor, sort of wrote this up hoping to get more attention onto it so that people would report about it, and nobody did. It's sort of like, okay, the Colombian government put this report out, and sort of, everybody sort of just shrugged their shoulders about these allegations. So he was able to contact somebody in the military who said that they would look into it, that he kind of got a flat response. So he had actually gone on to a news program called On the Media and talked about how we have this blind spot to Latin America, which we really do. From my reporting, from my experience, it has just happened to be that the last, 5 or 6 presidential tours to Latin America were overshadowed by some sort of scandal here in the U.S. or something that was happening. Every time that, for instance, President Obama has been in Latin America, the questions have been about, something that happened somewhere else in the world, something completely unrelated. And there's reporting, the president went to Latin America, he talked to these presidents, and they're going to try to work together. And it's always very sort of, yeah, he went and talked to them. Just the U.S. news media has a blind spot to Latin America because it's big, it covers this wide area. Some of it doesn't even speak Spanish. It's a very difficult area to sort of get your arms around. A lot of people, non-Hispanic people, don't have like this strong connection to Latin America. So it's just a really difficult place to report on. Although we have a lot of vested financial interests in Latin America, we have a lot of aid that we give them. We have a lot of money that we give them to increase their security. We've got a lot of issues related to migration and drugs and all kinds of things like that that we really should be paying more attention to. So that's kind of why I wrote that first article. The second article was sort of saying, hey, it turns out that the historian that wrote that research paper for the Historic Commission in Colombia basically made these allegations up out of whole cloth, and there wasn't anything to them. So there were other things that have been reported in Colombia that were crimes against women and children perpetrated by Americans on Colombian soil. And of course, the promises are always that they'll be looked into. But just coming back to this idea that we don't have a mechanism for really knowing what's going on over there, and having the resources to put news bureaus in key places in Latin America where they can respond to these sorts of allegations or news in a very nuanced, contextual way that will really be able to suss out some of the negatives from the positives, some of the untruths from what's really going on, etc.
So what was the results from these allegations?
So it turns out that most of the allegations were incorrect. It turns out that a lot of these were actually the videotapes, for instance. There had been said that there had been these videos made of soldiers or American contractors with young children, and it turns out that some of those were actual pornography, some of those were consensual, some of them were not. So, I mean, it's really a mixed bag. The core and the mass of the allegations that were made were incorrect, but there are several other well-reported instances that have been documented and taken to the law enforcement in Colombia of similar things that have happened that sort of, they get brushed under the rug because there's not a lot of people to complain about it. There's not a lot of people asking for more reporting, and there's not a lot of power from some of these very poor indigent people who live in Colombia and have to, for instance, resort to prostitution or get taken in by scams by people that are coming to visit. They don't have the power to sort of demand that the law enforcement apparatus works on their behalf.
Thank you so much for your time. I would like to give you the last word.
The last word is be a savvy news consumer. If this subject is important to you, or any other subject, any other type of reporting that you feel like you don't get enough of or you don't see enough of, send a letter to your editor. Talk about it on social media. We are news consumers. So as consumers, we have the power to tell our news media what is important to us and what we want to see in our reporting. We sort of don't have to just put up with whatever the news people decide to give us. So sort of advocate for yourself, whether your topic of interest is Latin America or whether it's poverty, suburban poverty, or any other topic. Good news. Some people say we don't have enough good news in the media, and I couldn't agree more. Just make sure to advocate for it, and I'd love to hear about your story ideas. You can reach me at Twitter at estherjcepeda.com. That would be on Twitter, at estherjcepeda, or you can find me on Facebook at the same thing. It's Facebook/EstherJ.
Thank you for tuning in to this segment of Your Black World News. Until next time, my friend, stay blessed and be encouraged.